Hello and welcome back to Kerbal Switch Round. Today it's time for another one of those design process videos. We're going to start with a look at the finished product. This is the Monogram 172 F-19A Concept Mark 1. And it does have BD Armory on it. We have some flare dispensers down here, some flare dispensers up here, some chaff dispensers up here. We have a ton of the Juno engines. This is based on a hypothetical design for a super fighter that has never been confirmed or denied, or maybe it's been denied. I'm not really sure. I didn't read too much up on it. I just saw a picture and thought it was cool and thought I'd try to make it in KSP, which is basically impossible because it's a very slim, very angular design, and this is the best I could do. This is not particularly good. It is not an advanced fighter. This behaves more like a second, maybe third generation fighter. As you can see, we have a weapon manager on the roof of the cockpit. We actually have weapons bays. This opens up and this opens up. And let me go ahead and open up both of them again. And above them, you can see we have two Hellfires. So this is designed for ground attack, obviously, based on just, those two missiles being in there. And, of course, the reality of it is it's supposed to be like a stealth fighter, so I don't think it's really designed for ground attack, but my version is designed for ground attack. Deal with it. It's also got two Vulcan cannons. The reason they're down there on the bottom like that is I was experiencing some weird glitchiness where it wouldn't detect that it was capable of firing from in here. It originally was in here because, as you can see when I close these, there's a tiny little gap there, and I made it so that the barrel of a single Vulcan came out right there. Unfortunately, it didn't recognize that as valid, so I moved them down here. It kind of doesn't look that great, but I kind of wanted to show this anyhow, just kind of, it's a thing, and also to kind of show the design process went into it. You can also see the overall slope of it. It kind of slopes down. It's got this weird effect going on there. This particular design, I think, is a good one to do the showing how I go through things, because if you look at this, you can see how many versions of it I went through. And by versions of it, I mean work in progress things. So the work in progress one was a flat wing with a slight curve on the outside, as you can see there, and was basically, can I get the profile of it to look right? Can I get the profile to look good? And the answer was mostly yes. It looks a bit not so good right here, but I figured I can cover that up, and it doesn't look too bad even if I can't cover it up. Oh yes, you can also see, this was the very first thing I did before I even went to working on the wing, was I wanted to see if I could get this kind of slope down to look good and this kind of belly to be hollow, and I wanted to make, like I said, a little bay where you could fire something out of, and I realized, hey, I made that. It's just big enough a Hellfire could drop through it. And there you go. The second work in progress save is when I started working on adding the engines. Now, the actual picture for this, the engines aren't as high above the wing. It's a smoother look. It looks like it has some intakes. It's actually a bit more separated, this. It's not just like four together. They're actually slightly separate and at a weird angle. But I couldn't really achieve that the way I would want to in here. So this is my attempt at that. And, that's interesting. It looks like I didn't clip these into there. Oh wait, here's the error right here. See that? See that tiny bit of clipping right there where you can see part of this one, this engine inside that engine? You can see it on the other side here. Yeah, that's been fixed in a later version because I noticed it and I went, oh god, no, I messed up. Yeah, see, it's little things like that that bug me with clipping. But then see, these are clipped in, these are clipped in. But see, the thing is, as long as it's not obviously wrong like it is right here, I'm fine with it. Or as long as it looks good. Like, there's just certain things that look good, certain things that look bad. I don't particularly like how this is put together right here, but it's a very small bit that's like wrong, and so I'm allowing myself to ignore it. It's weird. The third work in progress, let's see. I don't think I made much difference here. In fact, I think it was, nope, I hadn't fixed that yet. Let's see, maybe it's the adjustment of the wings itself. Yes, it is. So you can see these have been raised up slightly. And this is basically where I realized that this part was too tall. It's like way up above the cockpit, and it's not really supposed to be. So I started, you can see this has been stepped down a little bit, this has been stepped down a little bit. I'm trying to step down the wing so that this goes lower down. In fact, it's much more noticeable. It looks more like this on the other version, and then on this one it looks like this, as far as how high this is above the cockpit. The fourth work in progress is based off of the third, and you can see I kind of started angling things a little bit, and this is the part where I realized really I should have tried to do angling stuff more than moving stuff vertically. So the fifth work in progress actually, if I remember correctly, goes back to the second or third, and then works on angling things more instead of always just bringing them down, like vertically straight down. It works on angling things more. And this is basically the shape I ended up with. So you can see the intakes are much more behind it. It is a slimmer profile. You can see it's actually slimmer in the back than it is in the front. Of course, that gets sacrificed as I work on the bottom. And as you can see, I worked on making the side walls of this upper part a little more, as well as adding these tail fins, which the tail fins should look different on the actual thing, but there's nothing that I could really quite get the right shape and size in KSP. These are too big in the wrong shape, but oh well, I figured I'll deal with it. It's already not going to be the way I wanted it to. This is actually quite a difficult task. So at that point, I wanted to see if it would even fly, because the thing is, it is got a weird wing shape going on, and it has, you know, kind of weird alignments and stuff, and engine being above the center of mass and all. There's all these things conspiring to make it not very flyable, and so I made this little stand like this to make it so I could try to fly it. I forget if the test flight based on this was successful or not. I think it was, but I determined... No, it wasn't, because I didn't have the thrust-to-weight ratio to actually get off the ground like this. I accidentally skipped 6, because basically as I was working on it, I'd always adjust the number on it before clicking save again. Well, before working on it further, and sometimes I'd forget if I adjusted the number, so I'd adjust it again, and that's how I end up skipping numbers. As you can see in this case, I put a lot more progress into the bottom of it. I decided the bottom was going to go ahead and be thicker, and I was going to add more engines, because I realized it didn't have enough thrust to weight. So you can see I've kind of copied the top as far as the engines are concerned. I've added these side walls for kind of a hollow body down there. This part, I'm actually pretty happy with how it turned out, but it was kind of weird at the time, and I was trying to get another bay in here, but I realized that that wasn't really going to work. Of course, as you already saw in the final version, I figured out a different way of doing this, and this again shows why having different work-in-progress versions is a good idea, because this work-in-progress I liked this particular stage of things, but I ultimately didn't go with it, and I went with something else. Going to the 8th version, let's see, I believe all that's changed is, yes, see, this is now in the final form. I decided to work on that. I managed to get it to where it could go lower. Oh yes, and you can see now here, where I was talking about the gun being able to point through that little gap right there. So you can see the barrel has a clean shot. Of course, BD Armory stuff doesn't see it as that. And it's possibly something to do with the fact that BD Armory, the gun, doesn't recognize when you offset things or rotate things very well. It seems to ignore those, and I found that out the hard way with I forget what it was. It was an old design. It was an old, I believe it was the Yak 28 when I made that a long time ago. And I don't know if that's been fixed yet. It might have, but at least when I was building this, it wasn't fixed. Something new in the BD Armory that we have right now, by the way, since I just remembered I wanted to mention it. We have this targeting ball. It's essentially the front of the, the targeting pod without the rest of the targeting pod on it. And I don't know if there's a downside to using it instead. I'm pretty sure it's the same thing. And reading the descriptions, they say it's basically the same thing. The only difference is the size and mass. Yep, the size and mass are the only differences. So for the 9th work in progress, I looked at the possibility of doing the bottom completely differently using one of these Mark II cargo bays, and I managed to make it not clip in the top, and I thought, oh, that'd be cool if I could make it open in a way that was cool. And I was trying to think if I could use these side walls and that, but as you can see right here, it clips in a weird way. It doesn't work very well. I saved it at this stage to come back to this idea later. The work in progress 10 is where I went back to that idea, and I tried using it with that. So you can see I've eliminated the side walls, I've made this more enclosed, and I kind of realized this wouldn't really work very well, or at least I think I did. Maybe I did another version of it. Nope, as you can see, the work in progress 11 is where I went right back to the old design. I started using elevons to kind of close this off. As you can see, I didn't completely close it off. There was no perfectly symmetrical way to close this off, so I decided, screw it, I'm leaving a tiny gap there. I don't care anymore. I tried several different ways of making this closed or making it with a little bay where you could drop more things out of here, and there never really was a good way of doing that, so I just made it like this. The work in progress 12 adds landing gear. And yeah, I think that's about it. It adds landing gear. There might be a couple other very small variations in how things are laid out, but probably not. It's just landing gear. Work in progress 13 is moving the landing gear slightly, I'm pretty sure. Or if nothing else, it's changing action groups and experimenting with that kind of thing. The work in progress 13.2 is definitely just changing action groups and maybe rearranging some flaps. Like the default positions on these flaps, you can see they're slightly angled downwards. I don't know if this was this version or the previous one. It was probably this version because after testing I realized that it had a tendency to pull up too much, so I adjusted those ever so slightly to make it a little more flat, a little more stable. And here in the 13.3, looks like, again, it's just minor adjustments. I'd have to like carefully search over and compare every detail of the craft to tell you what's actually different. In fact, this one, I believe I know what it is. I think it's this winglet has been tilted down slightly. Again, that was more about making it stable. This one has one extra part, as I was looking at just as I put it in. Oh yes, this is when I added the weapon manager, because up till this point it didn't have it. And I believe at this point, yeah, we don't have the Hellfire in here. We still have the gun, which doesn't work, and I've accidentally saved it. Fortunately, I didn't make any changes. Also, this is a work in progress, so I'm going to delete, so I don't care. The work in progress 14 adds, I believe, a Hellfire in here. No, it still doesn't. Okay, it must have been... Ah, this is when I was trying to get the gun to work. This is when I moved the guns back. I gave up after working on it for quite a while. There were several work in progress 14s which were adjusting the gun, I'm pretty sure, and then I finally just put them back here because I'm like, fuck it, I can't make this work right. Finally, we have the work in progress 15, which is, if I am correct, pretty much the same as the final version. Yeah, at this point I had come up with the Hellfires in here, I had put a little strut here, and everything was pretty much done. I believe the only difference between this and the final version is probably something like putting the steering on or changing the lights on these. But then again, I'm looking at them and it looks like I had already done those adjustments here. And that brings us, of course, back once again to the final version, which adds the flare and chaff dispensers. That's the only difference. Yes. So, I'll go ahead and release this if anyone wants it. But like I said, it's not very good, and I think it's about time we demonstrate that. Now, depending on the order in which I post this, you might recognize this craft sitting over here. Or you might not. But in any case, there's another video I did just before this one using that other craft, and that will become relevant shortly. Anyhow, this thing does not fly particularly fast, or does it? I don't remember. I know that it takes a little while to get up to speed because it just has a bunch of those tiny engines. I also don't remember the numbers, the action groups for triggering these, which I'm definitely going to need to learn because of what I plan on doing with it right now. As you can see, it takes off pretty quick. Takes off pretty quickly, pretty easily on its own, and we're now flying. If I disable the SAS, you can see it pulls up on its own. Despite my attempts to stabilize it, it will pull up on its own. It has fairly good maneuverability, but it is slower. And like I said, this is more of a second or third generation craft than something more modern. And I'm going to go ahead and start hitting buttons. 1 does nothing, 2 switches, weapons. Oh yes, here's an example of part of the glitch I was having with the weapons. As you can see here, it's decided that the things that my weapons are shooting at are me! Which doesn't make any sense, and the weapons will fire correctly. See? They fire correctly, so I don't know why it does that. And then, let's see, no weapon. Okay, 3 is probably fire. Oh, no it's not. 3 is deploying both flares and chaff at the same time. I decided with this particular craft that you're more worried about please stop firing whatever that is that's firing at me than knowing whether it's radar or heat seeking. In any case, we're going to be Team B now, and you should see, yes, you should see that craft down there starting to take off because it's going to come after us. And this doesn't have an AI on it. I'm not going to give it an AI. It also doesn't have any weapons except for Vulcans that can attack the other craft there. So basically right now what we're trying to do is survive being attacked. That is the whole case for what we're doing right now. We're slower than that other craft, we're probably less maneuverable, and we're going to try and survive it attacking us. That's essentially all we're doing right now. Let me go ahead and open up this and get our radar warning receiver on. So you can see we're behind it, so it doesn't have a radar lock on us. In fact, it's actually turned around though, it looks like. So now it does! Okay, we got lucky there. Partially because of my maneuvering, partially because of, oh god, it's trying to fire at us with guns. Partially because of my maneuvering, partially because radar stuff. We've taken a couple of hits, wow. Yeah, oh god. It's still, oh. We've managed to, at least for the moment, outmaneuver it. Alright, let's see if we can keep it not, well, not so much not on our tail as just not in a position to fire at us. Because right now, it can't fire on us. We're actually getting on its tail. Let's go ahead and switch to the Vulcans, even though, whoa, I messed up my maneuvering there slightly. We're going to try and kind of get a line up on it. We're not going to be very successful, partially because I'm flying it instead of an AI, partially because, well, these guns don't, like, target properly. In fact, I have a feeling if I did put an AI on it, that AI would not fare very well, because the AI would not understand that these guns can fire the same way that... Whoa. Whoa, we went, like, right in front of the guy. And he doesn't mind getting this low to the ground. I've set up the AI on him. I've preset it up to have certain characteristics. I'm still not 100% sure how all that AI stuff works. So, there's probably more I would want to do with it, but that's how we're doing things right now. He's only fired one missile at us. The rest was gunfire. And now it looks like he's letting us just kind of be on his tail. And surprisingly, this thing's holding its own. Other than the fact that we don't... Oh wait, no, he was actually turning towards us. Other than the fact that we don't have a weapon that can really take him out, we're holding our own pretty well. As long as we stay behind him, which we can do fairly effectively. I'm surprised by this, actually. It looks like he can't really touch us, which is pretty good. I mean, he managed to get a few hits with his guns, but he didn't actually destroy anything. He just damaged it, just overheated it briefly. Let's see. Heated by engine exhaust. Oh, okay, that's cool. Oh yes, AIM-9 that tried to hit us. And, yeah. So we have some parts that were... In fact, are these... Well, one of these is that parts, and the other one is not so much. But yes. So yeah, let's go ahead and, let's see this from the cockpit view. So we're trying to keep on him. And because this is the, because they changed this cockpit to make it less visible, because it's now supposed to be like a passenger airplane thing, it's very hard to do combat from it. So I'll just say this is part of why this is a second or third generation fighter instead of a newer thing. I'll just pretend that poor visibility is part of that. I know some fighters have poor visibility. Some new ones, some old ones. I think he's about to try and turn on us. Yeah, he's trying to... Oh, he's trying to get lined up. He's actually kind of lined up. In fact, I think he might have gotten on our tail just then, which is, of course, not good for us. I'm going to just pull hard in a circle here and see if I can get the drop on him again. I have no idea if he's above or below me. Oh, he's still below me. Okay. Let's try and just keep him in our sight. Oh yeah, this thing has supreme yaw authority, by the way. I just use that to kind of get the turn on him. And so be aware of that. Alright. Pull towards him, pulling this way. Alright, there he is. He's, we're gonna fly right past him. And yeah. So this thing can, almost run circles around the GI-16. That's the name of that other plane. It's effectively an F-16 that's been shortened. And that's why I called it the GI-16 instead of an F-16 replica, is because it's too short to be an F-16. And so I didn't want to say it's an F-16 when it's clearly not. And, no, he's still turning. I thought for a moment he was coming at me in a way where he could fire. He is kind of coming at me in a way he can fire. He's firing! Okay, let's pull this way. Wow, that's pretty close. He's sort of on my tail. Let's see if we can... Let's see if we can get back on his tail. It looks like we can, actually. Or at least we can keep him in our sights. Now, if I had an AI enabled on this thing, and that AI knew it could use its guns, I think I would have a better chance here. But I guess this just shows to pro that... proves to show... I don't know what I'm trying to say. That just because your design isn't that good, just because it's not got the best engines, just because it's older... Just because it's slower doesn't necessarily mean you can't hold your own. As you can see by the fact that that thing is better than what we're flying right now, but it hasn't been able to kill us. Haha. Wow. Look at that. He can do some pretty sharp turns. So can I. So can I. He looked like he almost lost a bit of control there. Alright. So... I'm going to pretend that I'm actually trying to escape from this combat maneuver, or this combat scenario. So I'm now going to stop chasing him and just head out in a direction. And hopefully I can survive that. I'm going to try and go to the island runway. I'm going to pretend that's the goal, that's my base. But he's probably going to get a good shot on me. He's probably going to get a good lead on me. Now I'm trying to gain altitude. Unfortunately, that's not going to be good for me. Okay. Looks good. Except that now I'm going away from the island, so I got to do another turn and try and get back on course. Because, as I said, I'm trying to go back to the island. I want to go to the island. And he's now firing guns at me. So I'm going to try and fly in a slightly less predictable path towards the island to try and not get shot down. But as you can see, that was a failure. And as you can see, he took out the cockpit. So he actually killed us. And now we can see what this thing does with no cockpit and no control. Is the SAS actually still managing to do anything? An engine cut out for a moment there, although I think that was more to do with lag than anything. It's interesting. It seems to be actually kind of stable falling in this way. It's gaining speed slowly, but it's actually holding itself stable. I'm not sure if the SAS is actually doing anything or not. It's really hard to tell because it's very, very stable. That is interesting. So, you know you don't have the best design when it's more stable when the front broke off and it's falling backwards than it was when you were flying it, right? But that's all for this time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in space.